Well, hours from now, the U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs are set to kick in, and this will include the additional 25% penalty that he imposed on Indian imports. This would mean that after a few hours, Americans would have to pay a 50% tariff on imports of several Indian products. This is naturally expected to affect India's exports in the near future, and many experts have been predicting that Indian exports could see a substantial drop in the ongoing financial year. Let's put out exactly and give you a lowdown of what sectors are likely to be affected when it comes to these sectors as well, when it comes to these tariffs and the effect that it would kick in. Let's put them out one by one. And when we speak of the textiles and the apparel sector, the exports in 2024-25, $10.9 billion US dollars. This is coming in from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Then we speak of diamond, gold and jewelry exports. That is to be affected when it comes to the exports in 2024 and 25. It was nearly a $10 billion industry. Mechanical appliances exports in the same year, 2024-25, amounted to $6.7 billion US dollars, and when it comes to agriculture and meat exports, that stood at $6 billion. Another industry there, when we speak of steel, aluminium, copper exports, that amounts to nearly $4.7 billion US dollars. This is as far as the data that has been collected from the Ministry of Commerce Industry. Let's in the meantime also talk about how the world is now quite aware that Donald Trump can be quite unpredictable. So these are some of the sectors that would be affected for now. But however, there are some other sectors that would be exempt from the Trump tax, at least for now. So the sectors that have for now escaped the Trump tax, when we speak as far as the pharmaceutical sector is concerned, it is $12.7 billion US dollar export that we are looking at that happened in 2024-25. However, there is another sector that has been exempted, and this is important as we speak of electronics and smartphones exports. It was nearly amounting to $10.6 billion US dollars. Another important sector that we speak of is the petroleum products, amounting to nearly $4.1 billion US dollar, as far as this data that is also being collected from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So India's loss is whose gain? Now remember, President Trump has pushed India when it comes to the highest bracket, when it comes to the tariffs. Remember, it is Brazil and India both standing at 50-50%. Now giving other nations a very competitive edge because India is a huge market, simply because they have lower tariffs imposed on them. So who exactly now gains when it comes to the tariff that has been imposed on India? So the Trump taxes India, but exactly who gains from it? Let's take a look as far as when it comes to the other sectors are concerned. Textiles, likely gainers when it comes to Bangladesh, Vietnam and Mexico, because it opens a big and a broader range of the market now, especially when it comes to the Asian countries. When we speak of diamonds and gold, likely gainers are Israel, Belgium and China. Meat and processed food, likely gainers also when it comes to countries like Pakistan, Thailand and Vietnam. There are other sectors when we speak of steel, aluminium, copper, likely gainers when we speak to our Canada, EU and UK. And this is the analysis that has come across from the GTRI. Now when we speak of the broader range where India could actually now look for when it comes to expanding its markets, experts, however, have been predicting that India's exports could drop to $18.6 billion from where it stands at the moment. However, there are several experts that also believe that these tariffs could equally hurt the American supply chain in the short term as well. But how much of a drop that we are expecting now, especially in India, especially when we speak of such a time when it comes to several of those sectors are now likely to be affected. Let's take a look one by one. 70% of a drop which is now expected in major export sectors. What are the sectors that we are talking about? 43% of these decline are expected in the overall shipping that now happens to the United States. And these projections that are also coming from the GTRI analysis. Now, while imposing punitive action on India and putting the moral burden of Ukrainian debts and the war that has been going on, why is India being single-handedly targeting as far as an adversary like China, which is one of the biggest buyers of Russia's fuel and oil? That has been, as far as when it comes to Donald Trump is concerned, he's now been accused of going soft on China. The US itself seems to be discussing energy deals with the Russian officials, and if sponsoring a war is the real reason, then why is US not imposing secondary sanctions, as the White House calls it, on China? Beijing, however, remember, is the largest buyer of Russian oil and purchaser last year, and the hypocrisy, however, just doesn't end there. Donald Trump saying that the US will allow the entry of 6 lakh students also from China, and hailed what he calls as a great relationship with China. So as far as an adversary like China is concerned, Donald Trump is putting the decades-long of friendship with India at risk.
The president has applied aggressive economic leverage, for example, the secondary tariffs on India, to try to make it harder for the Russians to get rich from their oil economy. He's tried to make it clear that Russia can be reinvited into the world economy if they stop the killing, but they're going to continue to be isolated if they don't stop the killing.
We're going to have a great relationship with China. I mean, it's happening. You see it. It's happening. They have some cards. We have incredible cards, but I don't want to play those cards. If I played those cards, that would destroy China. I'm not going to play those cards.